I think we should be good to go. This is a little bit of an experimental stream. I'm not sure if the camera is doing the same thing that it used to do. Uh, the uh, the version of OBS that I'm using has been bumped up from the 25.0.1 or 2 that I was using, I think point 1, to the latest version, 25.0.8, which was sort of fraught with peril because I use Slackware as a Linux distribution, and it doesn't have a package repository in the same sense as things like Debian and Ubuntu do for the purposes of just quickly upgrading packages. And it turns out that there's a library that hasn't been updated in 5 years that was updated in February, and the OBS people jumped right on the bandwagon on that. So there was a little bit of machinations on my part behind the scenes to compile a local version of that in a place where OBS could see it and the rest of the applications that are precompiled on the system don't, just to make sure everything is kosher. And so far, it seems good. It was a bit of a pain to get it all up and running, but uh, among other things, there are webcam controls right in now, which there weren't before. There's also something that I've been thinking about trying. Let me just take this off so it doesn't cause annoying issues in the stream proper. Um, which is the idea of streaming from my Linux machine to the Windows laptop that's immediately to the left of me, and having that be the thing that runs OBS and shootout, because then I could run Streamlabs instead, which I think might be a little bit better in regards to a lot of things that I'd like to do um, with the stream in general. But that's something that never really have time to play with these sort of things. So I think we're probably pretty good and ready to go here. Everything still seems stable. I'm seeing my voice meter pop there, so we're still having problems. Someone mentioned last week, hopefully the camera is still okay. It seems like it might possibly be zoomed in some weird fashion. I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to look back and see. But it was mentioned in the last stream that occasionally everything sort of turned a weird shade of blue. Hopefully, this version stops that from happening. I didn't really have a chance to check into that too much. I'm tempted to want to play with the camera a little bit more now that I'm looking at it, and it seems like it might not be quite the way it used to be. It might have been a little more zoomed out than it is right now. But one of the things that they fixed in versions of OBS after 25.01.1 was spontaneous crashing if you were to open the options panel. So I don't really want to fiddle with that right now because the stream proper is going on live. So let's say we transition ourselves into some Sublime Text live stream action. And away we go. So, hello, fellow Sublime Text Fanatics. OdatNurd here, back with another Sublime Text live stream. This is live stream number 66, if I remember correctly, for a date in the vicinity of the 9th of January, February, March, April, May, June. Not good with dates and times. I know my birthday, but I don't know how old I am. And the purpose of today's live stream is, as is usually the case, to do some Sublime Text package and plugin development and ask any questions that people might have about Sublime Text inside of the chat. Now, the topic of today's live stream is some more features in Override Audit, my package. In the last couple of streams, we've been working on some new features, and we're going to continue in that phase. This is something that actually was about 10 streams ago. Hello, Ashwin. When we were working on fixing up or adding the ability to freshen all overrides that are expired but not modified, which is something that was also a requested feature. And one of the things that was blocking that was a little bit of stuff that sort of related to stuff that we've done in the last couple of streams, which is conducting enough of a diff between two things to know whether or not they're different or not. So we sort of set that to the side and went on to work on other things. And so the idea tonight is to go back to that, which is probably going to require a little bit of re-looking at code that was done since then. I did a little bit of that before the stream and rebased some branches to get a good sense for what it was we were actually trying to accomplish. And what we have here on the screen right now is just a quick little plugin that I whipped up a little bit earlier. It was mentioned a couple of days ago on the Discord that although Monokai, which is the color scheme that I use, is the default for Sublime Text, it doesn't have quite as many scopes as Mariana does, which is the color scheme that is used by Sublime Merge by default when you use the dark scheme. And as a result, maybe I'm not getting as much syntax highlighting as I might technically like. So in order to just get a sense for what might be different between those two things, I whipped up this quick little plugin that loads both of those different color schemes, pulls out the rules, sorts them, and shows a diff of what rules appear in one that don't appear in another, just to sort of get a sense for what could possibly be added. And then, of course, I sort of skived off a little bit into the discussion of Monokai Pro, which is a package that is commercial. It's €10, which, if you're me, is something on the order of 15 Canadian dollars. The theme itself, I'm not a fan of the theme, but it does have various versions of Monokai, including Monokai Classic, which, according to this particular plugin, has way more scopes. I don't know what that might really apply to me, because mostly I'm looking at Python code and I was unable to see any real difference. But I have put out some feelers on the Discord to see if anybody else has a sense of that. And I only played with it a little bit with Python. I haven't really looked at, say, TypeScript, which is the other language I use a lot, and C. But though I haven't really done a lot of that to see if there's something extra going on in those that would make it worth the money for that sort of thing. Uh, Ironically, the Monokai Pro color scheme or theme package potentially has colored icons for the sidebar, but I never really got a chance to play with that because one of the things that it does is force the sidebar font to follow the standard font face. And while I like this font for the purposes of looking at code, I'm not interested in it being used in the sidebar. And basically, it didn't look good to me. Maybe there's some more configuring that could happen there. I'm not sure. But let's go ahead and jump into the one from the packages folder, shall we? And I don't know what I've been doing with this thing. I've been changing this file all day accidentally. Yeah, okay. Well, that's all well and good. Let's go reopen that. This, of course, is a file that will eventually be coming along with another feature that we maybe handle after this one, which is the ability to make patches. And Ashwin says, I love the adaptive theme in the default Monokai. I do as well. I sort of, I don't even know that I really had an idea for using any other color scheme. Monokai has just always been the default since back in 2016, at least when I started using Sublime, and I liked, I like a darker color in all of my tools. And it wasn't until maybe a year later that the adaptive theme came out, and I switched to that from the default theme, which I had been using because I was never really able to find another theme on package control that looked good to me. The main problem I had with the default theme as it existed when I started using Sublime was that the console was white, even though everything else was dark. But I kept using it anyway because it was better than the light theme that was there at the time, if I remember correctly. And then when Adaptive came out, I immediately grabbed onto that one because it makes everything nice and dark. Um, there, there are a few different kinds in the Monokai Pro package of different tints of colors for Monokai. One of which is Monokai Classic, which seems to mimic these same colors but have tons more scope coverage. So there may be something in there that would be cool. I'm not entirely sure, but the theme itself, no. One of the things I don't like about a lot of themes that I've run across and all the time that I've been using Sublime is ones that change the tabs to be square instead of, well, they used to be round and now they're sort of angly a little bit, but also to a degree. Ones that try to hide the boundary between them so you just see the names of files up there, not even with like a separator between them. I find that very hard to deal with personally. Okay, so let's see. Let's go ahead and close a few files here. We'll probably need to open some Freshen. That's one that we're definitely going to need. And I did some rebasing of branches that used to be based off of master onto this new pre v2.2.2 branch, which is going to be the next version that comes out, probably with the changes from the last couple of streams and these, if we can get everything working nicely. And ended up with some conflicts because it turns out I was fiddling with the menus and some of those things. So we may also need to do some setup in here as well. Let's get this back to the help that we're expecting it to see. We don't need a version of that there. And let's go ahead and size this a little bit just because, yeah. I'm really thinking of getting back on the origami train of using Control K R, Control R for resizing rows, but now that I'm using it for something else and I've been using it for so long, I don't really want to swap that the other way. Okay, so let's go and check into this. So We are on currently branch refreshing, which is different in a variety of ways. I guess I should point out the overall idea of things that we're trying to do here would be something like you create an override report and you see some stuff in it, and some of the things are expired, if you will. So maybe let's set a little bit of that stuff up. So if we went to the package directory and say into the Python folder and touch Python build for, shoot, minus D, yes, minus D 10 years ago, python.sublime build. So if we look at it now, it's from 2010 instead of 2020, for example. And if I was to refresh this report, that file gets an X next to it, which means it is a potentially expired override, which just means that the version of the file that exists inside of the package, or more specifically, the Sublime package file that is representing this, is newer than the file on disk, which means that the package has been updated after a file modification was made, and as a result of that, possibly there's something being masked there, because Sublime always uses an override in place of a package file, no matter what, without warning you, without telling you, even if one of them is newer than the other, which is the whole reason for this package existing. And let's go ahead and throw another one in here as well. Let's say in the make file folder, like so. So we would touch that. Take it back. And all right, that's not going to work in there, is it? The make Sublime build file, we'll do the same thing with that. And up in the default package, we'll do the same thing, but only for paste from history, like so. So if we refresh the report, there are some things in here. Now, one of the features of this package is that we can right click on a package, an override that is expired, and get this freshen option, which asks you if you want to do it, and then basically touches the file on disk. You can do it on a package and then freshen all of the ones in a particular package. And the new thing that we've added, or we will be adding, is this option here, freshen all expired overrides, which the purpose of this is to pluck all of the overrides that are currently expired and diff them to see which ones are actually modified, and freshen everything that is not modified, but leave other ones there. So if you had, say for example, you were working on syntaxes in the Sublime Text Packages repository and you had a bunch of files that were in there, you could easily come in and just say, all the ones that haven't been modified, I'm cool with those. Only show me the ones that I'm interested in, which sort of ties into what we've been doing in the last couple of streams as well. And Ashwin is saying, I've tried a few themes, but don't like those rectangular tabs and love Sublime's default trapezoidal tabs. For me, at least, I can distinguish tabs much better. Indeed. I saw when I first started using Sublime a lot of hate for the tab style that Sublime had at the time, which was more sort of a rounded corner kind of thing. Not a rounded rectangle, but more of an actual curve, which looked kind of different than other things at the time. Like I think Firefox and such with tabs had a slightly different style, and everybody was, or a lot of people were hating on it. But I always liked that too. It seemed like it looks a little different than everything else. It's not necessary for everything to look exactly the same. So what we have done so far, but not in there, is the idea that there's a command in here, freshen all expired overrides, that will appear in anything where an override appears expired. So and that includes not only in this report, but also in bulk diffs. So if we were to look in this one, there shouldn't be an option for freshen all, because there's nothing that's expired in this particular diff report. But if we did it for the default package and bulk diff that one, then we would see freshen all expired overrides. And in explaining that, I realized that that is actually probably not what we wanted. Well, this says freshen all expired overrides, which seems like it would freshen absolutely everything. Maybe that's something that should be in here. I think probably better to do it the way that we're thinking of with all files that are not modified. So we'll probably want to change that sort of thing. But that command is only available as of right now in here, and via work that we've done, um, it implements this command, which basically just calls freshen override for every package that says that it has something expired, and that freshen override method is freshening absolutely everything inside of the package, whether it's a diff or not. So there's a little bit of work to be done there, but let's go ahead and skip back through all of the stuff that happened here, which essentially was stuff like we added that command and a context menu to be able to find it, and add it to the main menu and the tab context menu. Those are all about exposing this particular command, and we note that most of these don't have a the main menu one has a caption. The context menu one, I would imagine, doesn't, because most of the context menu items uh, dynamically come up with their own captions. And then we have the new command, which was implemented to just do absolutely nothing except know whether or not it should enable or disable itself based on whether or not anything appears to be overridden inside of the actual report itself. And then we moved on to there to saying that there is a uh, there is a method. Let me just drag this up a little bit. Yep. Goodness gracious. Well, that's a pretty big one. Okay, well, this is the actual class itself. The thing that we actually used to do the diffing previously, or sorry, the freshening, previously you would execute the freshen command and you would just pass it the name of a package as a string, like default or something along those lines. And from that, it would create a package info instance, which is the class that is part of the library and override audit that does all of the work of looking to see if there's a folder in the packages folder, if there's a package file in the installed packages folder, if there's a package file in the shipped packages folder, and then gathering the contents of things to see what is an override and what isn't an override, and dependency information and all that good stuff, which is everything that the core override audit actually needs to be able to do anything. That's how it used to work. And that's because you would actually invoke the command from the command palette, and then you would be asked which one of these packages do you want, and you'd pick default, and then it would go out and actually collect the information for the package that you selected, and then do the freshening operation. Now we're wanting to do this potentially from a state of we already have as much information as we need, maybe because of other means, maybe some part of override audit that has already gathered a package info instance has decided it wants to freshen something, and in that case it already has an instance of this class. It doesn't make sense for this code to go out and make another fresh one. So this is a very simple modification that allows you to pass into this particular thread when it runs either an instance of that class or a name of it as a string, and then it creates one if it's a string. Otherwise, it just uses the actual thing. So that was a little thing there, and this is one of those, we're sort of working towards something. And I really feel like I got a sneeze coming here. I don't know if it's ever going to arrive, but it's driving me crazy. This one is allow this to work viewless. And the reason for this particular change is if we were to come over here and freshen one of these things, one of the things the freshen command does is look into the view, find the package that you did a freshen in, find the override inside of that package, and then modify the buffer to remove this if it successfully freshens it. So as you're freshening things, this report actually sort of self-modifies so you can see things that you have freshened and things that you haven't. And based on that, again, this command is meant to be executed while you're looking at a report, and you click here and you pick, I want to freshen this override. So it would actually be invoked from this view. But maybe we don't want that. Again, if we just decided to execute freshen all unexpired overrides, then or sorry, freshen all expired unchanged overrides is probably a better way to say that. Maybe we want to do that when there's not a view. And this is just as simple as if you actually were given a view, then it can modify the package. There's a command that's built in to do that, because this command is a window command or running from a thread in the background, but it's certainly not running inside the context of a text command. And of course, we can't modify a buffer without being in a text command. I believe this is actually coming from a background thread. So, and then we just, in a couple of places, ensure that if there is a view, do something. And as a result, it's okay for us not to have a view here. Previously, it used to be it would get mad. As a matter of fact, that should probably change a little bit, because it doesn't matter if it's not given a view. Maybe we'll go ahead and, whoops, fix that too while we're at it. Oh, it's going to be like that, is it? Right, right, right. Not given a package, like so. First part of our little thing. This is why we're sort of going over this, because this happened 10 streams ago, so a little ways back. I've been sort of sitting on this, trying to think of the best way to proceed. And now allow for multiple freshens at one time. So there used to be, let's go ahead and maybe we close that up and we can see a little bit more stuff here. If we were to look, there is a method for freshen override, as we can see there, whose purpose is, or used to be, you'd give it the name of a package, like default, and the name of an override inside of it, like say paste from history.py, and it would do all of the work for you. It would say, pop up a confirmation box that says, would you like to freshen this? And if you say yes to that, then it would spin off an override freshen thread and pass it the name of the package and the name of the override that was provided. And if you provide a package but not an override, then it would just try to freshen everything inside of that particular package that happens to be expired. But for the purposes of looking at a report like this and saying freshen all unmodified expired overrides, there could be many of them, and there could be many packages. And instead of splitting the thread to do one thing in default, and then spinning off another thread to do one in makefile, and then spinning off another thread to do one in Python, which doesn't seem like a particularly great idea, we modified the freshen override method so that instead of passing it a single package and a single override, you can pass it a list of packages and a list of overrides. And there may or may not need to be more work that is done in here. There is a to-do here, but the idea there is that instead of doing it for just one thing, it could do it for multiple things by stepping through them. And we might even see a little bit of that down in this part where the actual thread is doing stuff. There was a fair bit of work that had to happen for something like that in order to work. But that's what this is doing. Now, there's still some stuff that has to be worked on here, because if we can see, if we look in the left, if you just passed the name of a package like default, then the confirmation dialog, if it's turned on, would just say, would you like to refresh? Are you sure you want to refresh all expired overrides in default? And you would say yes, no. Or if you passed it the name of an actual override, then it would say, confirm you want to freshen default / paste from history.py. So you're being asked, if you have the setting turned on, what you want, if you want to confirm, and it tells you exactly what it is. And currently this is just saying the stuff, because there's more things that have to happen there, like the list of all the packages, or the list of all of the overrides, or maybe after a certain number we say, would you like to freshen these 19 things? There's probably a limit to how much stuff you can put in the dialog box and actually have it appear on the screen. So a little bit of work thought had to go into how we convey that information in there. So I just sort of left that for the end, if you will. And then lastly, there's the actual command itself, which we could actually see if we were to look in the actual code, which is calling this with some stuff. Actually, let's go ahead and look at this in the actual code itself. This command is either always visible or only visible when it's enabled, depending on the command line argument always visible, which is something that all override audit commands do, because I don't want them to be in the context menu unless they actually apply, and otherwise they should, but I don't want that to block if a user wants to modify a context menu of some sort. If you wanted to modify the menu to have commands in there, then you should be in control of whether or not things are hidden or not. So all of the override audit commands take an argument that is always visible, that's a boolean, and if that is set, then this thing always is visible. Otherwise it's only visible if it's currently enabled. And as we can see in this one, when it's enabled, it gets the report type, and if it gets a report type and it's not the package report, then it finds the actual target of the command and um, gets the list of all of the packages that have expired overrides and only enables itself if there's at least one of them, which is how it knows whether it's an override report or a bulk diff of a single package or a bulk diff of all packages, or what there might actually be in there. And the description is freshen all expired overrides, which is again slightly wrong. And this is currently refreshing every override because what we're doing is grabbing just a list of every package and shooting it through. Excuse me. Which is right here on line 22. It's getting the list of every package that is currently expired and passing that in, and uh, because it's refreshing absolutely everything, it needs to have a list of overrides that matches this. This is all to do with how previously you'd give it the name of a package and none to freshen a whole package, or the name of a package and the name of an override to freshen a specific thing. The way we expanded it out, each one of them can be a list, but if they're a list, they both have to have the same number of items. So you can say package list and a list of 5 things, but then you need a list of 5 nuns to say that all overrides in those packages. Or what this should actually be doing is coming up with the list of every override that needs to be freshened that is not modified, and then explode that list out so it could pass it in and everything could be freshened. So with all of that, I'm pretty sure this stuff works for what it is, except for the couple of to-dos in here, which has to do with whether or not the excuse me, whether or not the menu is actually there or not. The confirmation dialog box, which again, I still need to think a little bit more about how that would work. There's probably some minimum number of refreshes that could happen before it just switches to, are you sure you want to freshen 15 overrides in 12 packages or something along those lines? Something that gives you an impression that something exciting is going to happen. Kind of can't remember why this takes keyword arguments. I guess most of the commands do, because it's yeah. If I had to guess, the reason most of the commands in override audit take a keyword argument list instead of explicit ones, because they're meant to work from inside a view like so, or also from the context menu in the tab. And in the tab, there's other arguments that need to be there for the file index and the group index to be able to find it, which is why all of these commands derive from a helper class called context helper, which is able to figure out the target of the view based on the arguments we got is something, which could be the file that you actually right clicked in, or in the case where it's a tab, the actual view is not the same as where the command actually is executing. So there's a little bit of extra work that has to happen there. I think maybe the first thing we might do, just because we have that, is modifications to the main menu and the commands file, because those things that we added aren't technically correct. Freshen all expired unmodified overrides. Whoops. Unchanged. It should be unchanged, shouldn't it? Freshen all expired unchanged. Maybe we want a version of this actually that works both ways, as a matter of fact. In which case, maybe there needs to be more stuff in here. Unfortunately, this is slightly backwards from the other ones, because the other ones are excluding unchanged, and now we're including unchanged if we wanted to do something like that. Maybe we do. Maybe someone wants to just absolutely freshen everything without caring. It would be easy enough to add later. So, yeah. I mean, when it comes right down to it, the difference between all expired unchanged overrides and just all expired overrides, whether they're changed or not, all comes down to whether you just say package list none times blah, or if you actually investigate to see what the list needs to be. So if we add an investigation to this, we could easily flip that around if we wanted to. In fact, we could probably even include that as an argument in this command and not actually include it in anything. That might actually be a nice way to go for that. Freshen all, of course, that does require this to change too. Yeah. Why did I not decide? I guess everything in the main menu has a specific caption. That's kind of funky. I would have surprised, would have thought that I would have done that in a different way. Let's go ahead over here and freshen all. Shoot, I already forget what order I did that. It expired unchanged. Unchanged overrides. So if we were to look over here, the nice thing about this then is we should probably throw a thing in here. If we actually filter the list to things that are only unchanged, we need to handle the idea there might not be any. Right now we don't have to be worrying about that because the command only enables itself when there is something. And the underlying code is smart enough to do nothing if it doesn't find anything anyway, but I don't like the idea of dispatching the freshen override call, which might spin off a thread if there's not going to actually do anything. We saw that in the main menu. We saw that there. Those are the only places that stuff sort of happened, right? I'm kind of unhappy about the order that I rebased these things. I wasn't thinking I should have rebased refreshing last so that it was at the top of the list and made things a little bit nicer. But what can you do? Yeah. So if we looked here, actually, command file, menu file. Oh, the context menu. Right. Context and tab context. But the one, shoot. Yeah. All right. So we don't need to worry about the context in the tab context, but I guess we just modify the command itself. Expired, unmodified, and unchanged. I really have a hard time coming up with. Yeah. So with that in place, we should see it up in this menu. Yeah, cool. And in this one as well. So we might actually just go ahead and, whoops. And this is one of those things that may change. We'll stage that, stage that, stage that, and then say verbiage alteration. Now, one thing that we kind of need to know in order to filter this to only things that are changed. And an example of this, if I was to bulk diff this file is expired, because I did stuff, but it is definitely modified. I modify my paste from history so that it uses a quick panel instead of a menu, for example. But these other ones, well, I guess this one's, they might actually all be modified now that I think about it. Should probably do that for something that's not to make sure that that actually works. Let's see. That one definitely has a change, and that one definitely has a change. So let's say we actually create an override in the default package for this, and then just save it. And what I call it, add line before. More than one add line in here? Add line in braces, you say. Why is that not showing up in this report? That's interesting. Oh, there it is. Maybe I didn't do something that I thought I did. How is this different from anything? Is it? No. Well, in that case, let's delete that one. We already have one in here that we don't care about. There we go. So this one, if we were to diff it, is completely unchanged, but this one, if we were to diff it, is not. So if we test this in the default package, we should be able to distinguish whether one or both of these things is actually needing to be modified at all. Now, the reason I was thinking about this, apart from the fact that we sort of set it aside, is because one of the things that I was pondering is the best way to determine this and whether or not a file is actually different or not. Oh, shoot. Let's go ahead and there we go. Like so. And that's kind of something that we did with the last couple of streams when we worked on the other stuff. The override actually detecting to see, using the diff or whatever. So the thought occurs, if we were to look in the commands, if I can remember what it was that we modified, where might be the best place to grab the thing? I guess this one is the easier to look at thing. We actually had a filter up here somewhere, right? Exclude unchanged. Let's see where we're doing this. Okay. Output package, filter unmodified overrides. That's a thing that we're interested in. All right, so we kind of already have what we need here. It takes a list of overrides from a particular package and returns a copy of the list that's filtered so overrides that have not been changed are removed. That's kind of the opposite of what it is we actually want, isn't it? The idea previously was you would give it 15 overrides and it would say these 5 are not modified. But what we actually want is the things that well, let's go ahead and work our way through that, shall we? So we might say that. Oh, look at that. That just fits. That's fancy. Okay. Now, for the purposes of this, we're not actually going to call that. We might just say freshening, and this for the time being. Whoops. And that's what I'm going for. Reload that, which should have worked, so that if I was to pick the all freshen all expired unchanged overrides and hit it, it says freshening default makefile and Python none none none. So the first thing we might want to do is we don't care about that. We do care about that. We don't care about this. We don't care about this. Let's go ahead and clean this down a titch so we're a little bit nicer for the stuff we're looking at. Hide that. Maybe shoot that over there. So we can, whoops. Take a look at that while we're doing stuff. Just one of the reasons why I like to use this particular layout for things. So let's see. This is assuming that it has to be invoked from a report. You can't just invoke it otherwise. I'm okay with that. I think what we want. Do I actually have something in here that tells you about expired? Get a list of all overridden files for this package which are older than the source Sublime package file. Technically, I think that information could be plucked directly from here, and I would wager that, yeah, that's what I thought. It gets called with a package list and an override list. So we would pass that into the override freshen thread. And I think this would be responsible for pulling that information out. Whoops, went too far. Its process is this, where it gets the list of packages, possibly creates one if it needs to. That's the diff that we saw earlier. Override list is the list of all overrides that were provided to the actual thread when it was spun off. And for each package, get the package info. The override is the override list at the given index. Oh, because it's thinking singly. If override is not none, then it's doing a single thing. Otherwise, it's doing the whole package. And those are the things that do all the work. I remember now. So If you passed it a single override, this is where it calls package info.expired override files, which is how many other times is this called in here? Let me just trace through this code real quick. Like if you told it to diff an entire package, then it will get the list of expired overrides from that package with simple is true, and that's simple overrides are the ones you're most familiar with. Non-simple overrides are overriding an entire package that ships with Sublime by replacing the Sublime package file in the installed packages folder. It's a thing you can do. Hardly anybody ever does it. I've never actually seen anybody do it except for myself when I was working on this package. And there's probably people out there that might do it that never ask for help from Sublime authors or something. And in that case, it would iterate through each one and touch them. If you do it for a single override, then it will touch the one file and then it calls expired override files to see if it needs to clean the package. So one of the things I know is that the package class over here normally caches some results like so. So if it's simple and there's a list of expired overrides, then it would immediately return the list that it gathered previously. Otherwise, it will actually calculate them, and this is the bit of magic code that compares the last modification time of the file on disk and of the zip file that represents the package to know if it is expired or not. And if the package file is newer than the file, then there you go, because zip files don't necessarily have a time inside of them that is useful. They don't have any time zone information or anything. So we go by the package file instead. So one potential issue here that we need to ponder in this operation is that if this needs to only do something with expired packages, then in that particular case, it would need to call this method to find all of the expired files and then one by one call filter unmodified over or call filter unmodified overrides to pluck out things, probably reverse the sense of the call because right now this is throwing away things that are expired. We need that to work in the other direction, which is a simple set operation. And then we call this method with that stuff. But if we do that, then by calling the method in the class, it's going to cache the list of things that are expired. And then when the freshening code gets in there, it'll never mark a package as clean if it freshens everything, because when it calls the method to see, hey, what's expired in here, it's going to end up getting the cached information, which is from before it did anything, which means that part of this needs to be able to throw the cache away for something like this. Maybe we pass an extra method here. We could also just set expired overrides to none, and that'll, oh, not to none. We need to delete the entry for that if it exists. Self.expired overrides is a dictionary. There's a simple and a non-simple version of it, as we can see here. So there's basically a true and a false for simple and non-simple expired overrides, even though I'm pretty well, yeah, expired overrides as non-simple is the package itself and not just the contents. So it kind of works the same way. There's not a lot of support in override audit for working with that situation because it's so uncommon, but it will tell you if such a thing is out of date. I don't think you can freshen one though. We'll worry about that if anybody ever mentions that it's a problem. So here we go. We get the list of packages, and then we need to build up the list of overrides. So we might say overrides is equal to this. And then both of the places where this exists, we could just change this to overrides like so, which makes that a little bit nicer. Right now, it's trying to freshen all packages everywhere. So what if, don't do that, thank you. What if we said, right now it's going to do only unchanged. So we say include changed is equal to kwArgs.get include changed, and the default for that is false, like so. And we could say also here include changed, like so. Reload that, and if we came back and triggered the command, we verify. Uh-oh. Why did that not show up? Weird. Freshen all expired unchanged override. Maybe we will say fresh all, like so. And it ends up as false and some of that action. So now, if we were to say, if not include changed, I may have named that funky. Right now, if include changed is false, you don't want to freshen changed files, only unchanged files. So this is one of those weird ones. When this value is false, we don't want to do something. We only want to do something when it is true. So if we say if include changed, then doing a filter like so. And in that case, maybe I'll bring this down over here just to make that a little bit easier. Should probably just invoke it with a key binding, to be perfectly honest. FA, freshen all, there we go. And we don't see it saying anything there because of the way we named that. I like the idea of this. I don't know what a good name for this is that allows you to do it and then the code doesn't look dumb. Maybe we want this to say only unchanged. Shoot, is that what I was calling it in the other thing? Exclude unchanged. Yeah, okay, so only unchanged. The default for only unchanged is true. Did I just reverse this into an unfortunate state? I bet I probably did. Because if the default for only unchanged is true, then we wanted to say if not only unchanged. Let's see. If that that has the effect that we're interested in. Oh, maybe I should have changed it in all the places and not just in most of the places. My bad. Oh no, that's not what we want. Boop. And we get that. So yeah, I guess we want something like that. The default is to only freshen unchanged files. Right. That makes sense. So if we were to do this and say that, then it says doing a filter, but right now it's doing nothing. And only when you pass only unchanged as false would it not do a filter, which would leave this value the way that it is right now. So all we need to do now is figure out the list of overrides for that are actually unchanged for the particular thing that you're doing something inside of. We probably also want this to work not just for all packages, but for a single package as well, which I believe could be done by taking an explicit package. I think that's probably the idea that I had for this, but it was easiest when we were implementing the code originally to just do it for everything. So we would need to say for package info, for package in package list. And if it's pulling it from a setting, then it's just going to be the name of the package. So then we need to actually create a package info, which I'm not really including in here at all. Where's an example of what we're interested in here? Oh, sorry, that's not the core. This one's the core. Yeah, that definitely needs one of those. We're looking for... Oh, I'm looking in the wrong thing. Right. It's down here. Shoosh. This one. Viewless? No. Multiple freshens at one time. That's the stub. That's this. Package info. And I'm pretty sure we would have to import that from there. So, yeah. Yeah, that's probably not good. And let's see. Whoops. From lib. How's that for a guess? Shoot. Did I not go down? I bet you I didn't go down far enough because I am in the commands. One to there. Probably needed that, but now we got to quit and restart because automatic package reloader doesn't like reloading things that went pear-shaped. Okay. And yeah, we're happy now. We could even say print like so, and then when we trigger it, whoop, crap. No, stop it. Shoot. I have been doing that far too often lately. I keep hitting the P instead of the O. There we go. So that is working. If we only want to do unchanged, then we would say print the name of the package because that's the thing we got. And then we say unmodified is equal to package info dot filter unmodified override. Oops, sorry. This one. Whoa. Expired override files is what we're looking for. And simple equals true. Which is not something, you don't have to specify it with the argument name there, but because for a lot of this stuff, values are true or false to, and those aren't necessarily useful as just to look at it and know what it means. I did it this way because then I can easily tell exactly what I probably intended to do there. So if that's the list of unmodified things, then as a set, then if we came over to here, filtered is equal to filter unmodified overrides in package info for unmodified. So if this gives us, oops, these should be, pardon me. That's the list of all expired overrides. Then we filter unmodified ones. That would give us only files that haven't been modified. So we probably need what? Expired minus that. And then say, whoops. How close am I to getting that correct on the first try? Probably not super close. Let's do this first then. Oops. Right, so that works. Let's print both of them just to make sure that I remember how this is working. Oops. Yeah, like that. Like that. Don't do that. So they end up being the same both ways, huh? How many things in this are actually expired? 2. That's interesting. Does this thing actually modify the set? Maybe that's why it's going wrong. That would be unfortunate. I see. Oh, right. Don't do it that way. That's dumb. That's a little bit of a potential bug, huh? Okay. These are the two things that are expired. That's the thing that's modified. And the reason that wasn't doing what I thought is because if I did this, both of them tend to be the same. That's because it's removing things directly from the set. I should be wrapping this. This is in the core, huh? For temporary purposes, something like that should make those two things go back to being the other way. No? Oh, wait. result equals set overrides, like so. And then we go bang, bang, bang. Result. Pardon me. Doesn't matter if you iterate over a copy if you're going to still modify the thing anyway. And, ooh. What? Well, that's interesting. Override diff result has no attribute remove. I'm not entirely surprised. Oh. Okay, let's take that back for a second to make sure I didn't do something dumb there. Overrides is a list and not a set. Is that the issue? You'd think just because I wrote this last week that I'd remember how it actually works. No. Well, that's unlikely to be the cause of result suddenly being an override diff result. Oh, because I reused the name. Did I just, yeah, let's go ahead and, good grief. Whoops. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Take that back to being a set because it most likely is. Those are both that. That's probably 150,000 times less dumb. Did I? Oh. Really? Why is that an issue now when it wasn't an issue before? Well, easy enough to fix. That is kind of ditchy, though. Okay, so now we get the result that we want. Kind of weirded out about why that didn't cause a problem before. I have a feeling. No, it must have been a list. Maybe we should just double check into that because it's going to bug me. That's the one we're working on right now. Filter unmodified normal overrides. Oh, shoot. Normal overrides is the result of overrides. Not actually well, it's a set, but it's not the set we want it to be, but that's okay because that's neither here nor there. But okay, so yeah, I'm ridiculously weirded out about how that was working, but now I think we should be able to say expired minus that. So we know if we did a bulk diff of the default package, that's the one we're going to concern ourselves with right here. If we bulk diff yon package, the paste from history should remain, and the other one is no things found, right? So if we did this, oh wait, did we go backwards on this? No, we didn't. Previously, there are two things that are expired, but only this one is the thing that is unchanged. Paste from history is changed, so it wouldn't be triggered. And as a result, those ones also would not go. So that's giving us everything that we want there. And we could kick that out and kick both of those out. Now, issue with this is how we build up this list. I can think of a lot of ways to do it, but how many of them are actually clean is the issue. The way that it's done right now, the list of packages and the list of overrides inside of that package to freshen need to both be the exact same length. So if there's 2 packages in package list, then overrides has to be none twice in the list, which is what we see on lines 28 and 29 right now. And in that case, the freshening code would just pluck the list of everything expired and flush them all. If we want to do only unchanged ones, then that is modified. We can't do a one-to-one here. We need to have a different package list and a different overrides that we apply to replace those ones. So maybe we might say, if not only unchanged this, else this, and then say, maybe we'll do it up here. Freshen every override in every package. So I think if we did this, nope. We end up, yeah, because those have not actually been set yet. So we would grab that and put it here like this. So that it could still iterate over things without actually pulling it. And that's not great, so I'd probably jimmy jam that around a little bit. Package list is referenced before assignment. Oh, right, because I haven't actually put anything in it yet at that point. Right. Okay, let's do this. Package list is that. If we're not doing only unchanged, it works like that. Otherwise, let's go ahead and put this back to the way I had it, like so. Because that just looks a little nicer than you pulling that thing out of there twice. Actually, maybe we do that slightly differently. Maybe we call this one packages, and then we can say package list equals packages. Otherwise, like so. And we need to say package list is equal to an empty list and overrides is equal to an empty list, like this. And get the information for this actual package, get the list of things that are expired, filter the unmodified ones out so that, and remove that from expired. So we get we might actually call this unchanged, like so, to get basically the list of unchanged overrides that have, expired overrides that are unchanged, which we get by getting all expired overrides, filtering out the ones that haven't been modified, and then removing those ones from the original list because filter unmodified goes in the wrong direction. And I don't know that I necessarily want to make a filter modified overrides over here, or maybe make this one over here take a Boolean for that when it's easy enough to do this way? I don't know. Maybe that's a good idea. We'll worry about that at another time. Also, we need to change that before we commit this too, because this isn't a set; it's a package file set, which is slightly different, and hopefully would work with a constructor like that. We should probably test that. Otherwise, we might be unhappy. A package file set is a set that can or cannot be case sensitive depending on the platform that you're running it on, because Linux is case sensitive and Windows and Mac OS are not. And that plays into how Sublime deals with overrides. So we need to do the same thing because, basically case doesn't matter in an override on Windows. It'll still work in Sublime anyway because it does case folding internally or uses raw file system access or something. Override audit would be case sensitive always because sets are case sensitive. So one of the first things I wrote for this is the package file set that knows to be case sensitive or not. For override in unchanged, package list append, and I think that might be what we want for something like this. So let's see. Did not spell that correctly. So it's only freshening one thing. In the default package, it's freshening add line before because that's the only override in this entire thing that hasn't been modified in some fashion. This is modified. I modified this for some reason, and I can't even remember why at this point. What if we did this? Yeah, revert that. And then if we swap back over to here, that one actually needs to be marked as expired for this to freshen, doesn't it? Yeah, so do like so, and now we do fa, and we end up with two things: default AppleScript. Oh, so right, default and add line before, and AppleScript comments. I forgot they interleave. That's given us the information that we want for that. Okay, oops, don't do that, pardon me. If the default value for this was false, like so, and we reload that, then if we came in here and did fa, we end up with default AppleScript makefile Python none, 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 because it's just going to try to freshen everything in everywhere. So that is more or less what we need to do in order for that. So that would take away, this is freshening every expired override in every package, but it should actually be executing a diff to determine what files are actually unmodified. And that, so we might say, actually, maybe we don't handle that case here. Let us check out the Freshen thread. Does this say anything if you tell it to do nothing? No such package, no such override, no files needed freshening. All right, so we don't need to worry about that, I don't think. We can just go ahead and dunk all of that out of there like so. Now, one thing I did want to check here, from override audit dot lib dot packages import package file set. So if I said that, no, is that not how sets work? if I said y equals package file set x, dandy. My magic override actually works for something like that. Perfect. So we would come to here and change this to package, whoops, file set like so. And we need to, is that already in here? Oh, it is. Cool. They don't even need to do anything with that. Swank. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump back to there. Filter. Yeah. I really got in my own head about the idea of having this have a Boolean so I don't have to do it over here. That's an unfortunate turn of events for me. Let us first say for core, let's stage this and say don't modify input set in place as the fix for that, which is this bit here. Because I don't think that that is a particularly good idea. Now we can't check this in yet because we haven't actually tested it and does anything. We don't want it to say it's freshening such de such. We want it to actually do it. And only unchanged, we want to actually be defaulted to true, like so. So in order to test this, and I think I might want to do this, just bung it over on this thing over here for a second, because I'm probably going to need to run some touch commands here to undo some stuff. So this, as we said, should only freshen this file and this file, but no others. So if I did this, oh, maybe we better make sure we did that. If I, well, we'll even freshen that to make absolutely for sure that it's all up to date. And then we do freshen all unexpired, unchanged overrides, and it says want to freshen the stuff, and we can say cancel, and then nothing will happen. We can do it again and say want to freshen the stuff. Let's say no, still nothing happens. I mean, why would that be different? But always good to check. And if we say yes, it says it freshened to package resources. If we looked in the console, it freshened default add line before and AppleScript comments, only the two things. Those are all sent to the status possibly. And we even see here that this was modified and that was modified, the two things that it did. So I'm going to go over here and say touch date equals 10 years ago. Whoops. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Default slash add line before and AppleScript comments. So we can put those back to the state they were in before. As a matter of fact, we might also include in there default paste from history. I'm just typing those same commands that you saw me typing before. Make file, make.sublime build, and python.sublime build. So we run that, and we can see oh, right, the comments file changed on disk. The modification time changed, so it reloaded the meta information for that. So refresh that, everything goes back to exactly the state it was before. If we change this to, say, false, which would allow it to freshen absolutely everything, even if it has been changed. And then we said freshen all and said confirm the stuff. Yes. It freshened 5 package resources. And we see here everything got nicely cleaned up like so. So I'm going to come back over here and hit that one more time. So both of those are working the way we might want them to. Now, one last thing was in the actual, excuse me, freshen thread, which is here in the core, weirdly. Yeah, APR is real handy. I'm real happy that I realized what weird thing. APR, by the way, if you're unfamiliar, Ashwin just mentioned in the comments, is automatic package reloader. Um, Makes working with packages a lot easier. One of the things I did in one of the streams back was fix my package so that it would work with that. Um, Basically, just because automatic package reloader reloads things in a specific way, which didn't work for me, and realistically, it has to load things in the order that it was. So I hadn't used it for a while because it was breaking in this particular package. But yeah, it makes life a lot easier. The only thing I don't like about it is if it has a problem loading a package, then you have to quit and restart to get anything to load again, but there's probably not a good way around that. So don't put syntax errors in your code and you're good to go. Um, One of the things, what was it in here that we were worried about? The call to expired override files. Um, Touching single overrides. What does clean package do? It removes it from there. Okay, so here's the thing to test. We go back to here. Only unchanged. Yes, we want that to be there by default. We can add another command to this. Let's reload that. It all works. So the idea here is we reload this. If I was to say freshen all expired unchanged, it should only freshen the two things, right? We're going to go ahead and say yes to that. Oh, I guess that way. It says it freshened two resources. And one of those was default, one of them was AppleScript. Now, this clean package call, did I just bunk it out of the way here? No, it's in this code. Clean package says if there is a view, then we want to modify the settings because there is a setting named override audit expired packages that's applied to all reports that keeps a list of all the packages that have expired overrides inside of them. So that it knows when you right click on something whether there's something expired in there. So see, for example, freshen all, freshen expired overrides in just in the package default. But down here in HTML, it doesn't appear because it knows there isn't anything in there. And what this clean package call is doing is saying, get the list of those packages, and for each one, remove this package from the list of stuff, or remove from the package list the package that we told it to clean, which in this case, if we did a single override, would be the name of the package that it came from. Now here, it didn't do anything, and I'm guessing, no, it actually worked there too. That's the thing I was unclear about what it would do. But yeah, that seems to have worked. I was a little concerned that because we call expired override files and it caches the result, that because we actually modified something out from under it. But we may have actually made that cleverer because it was already previously working. So maybe we don't need to worry about that right now. So that all seems to be cool. And I've been thinking for the week, the idea of, let's go ahead and move this back up to here for the time being. The idea of the excluding unchanged for all packages, and then there's just also all packages. The idea that if we wanted to freshen, we only want to probably allow someone to freshen all unchanged overrides and not freshen everything wholesale, because you could mask a problem that way. And if you were a power user, such as the person that asked for this facility, then they could easily add an entry to the command palette to give themselves the ability to freshen absolutely everything, even if it's a modified file. Which I think is a good. I've been. I was thinking, what's the best? Do we go for completeness in commands and have a freshen all expired overrides, including unchanged, um, or including changed, and freshen all unchanged overrides in the menu here, so that you could do it both ways? Because that is the complete way to do it, and clearly a code can do it. But I'm really trying to work from a position of override audit is meant to keep you safe in your package use and your overrides, to let you know when there are problems. So I don't really want to provide too many capabilities for you out of the box if you're unaware as a user to subvert the predictions that it provides you. But they're still there if you're enough of a power user to know how to do it. Then you're probably in a good position to be, yeah, trust me, I just want to flush everything. I don't care about it right now. I can always worry about it later if I want to. So I think that's where I want to go with that. And let's just see. Oh, okay, that didn't work. So I guess there is a little something that we need in here, um, for that particular one. I thought it would be cool enough not to get into issues. Core inline. Oh, the package list ends up empty. Right. I guess it assumes you're going to give it something. Yeah. Hmm. All right, let's see. In this version of core that's a little bit bigger, roundabout line 794, this part is important. We could do this. Mm-mm. That's probably the easiest way to do this. Uh, Process gets triggered, the way all of these background worker threads work is that they have a constructor that gets called to grab some sort of information, and once all the information is done, it calls process, which is kind of like run, but after extra work has been done. And it gets all of the arguments from an argument dictionary. And previously, it would make sure that the list of packages and the list of overrides is the same. I think there's a to-do somewhere that says if the length of the override, it should be possible for the package list to be any length and the override list to be empty if it was just going to diff everything. But no, that's an easy enough thing to do. And then previously it would say it needs to know if there's missing parameters. But since it's potentially possible for us to invoke this with empty lists, I think it's a good idea to do it this way. So if the list of packages is the same length, that's okay. They would both be empty. And then if the list is 0, well, nothing needed to happen. And then I guess this one may not need to be here in that case, because if the length of the package list is none, although what does not return for something like this? Oh, I guess it could be none. So we'll leave that in there for the time being. But with that change in place, if we said freshen all expired unchanged overrides, well, I guess we get that. And then no files needed freshening. Right. So this is part of the other thing then, I guess. Shoot. With that realization, let's take this out. We'll put it in a different place. In the core, if you call freshen override, this is the place where, yeah, during the multi-item rewrite, this was partially modified, but it needs to be smart enough to display the confirm information since there's more of it now, and it should infer a list of none the same length as the package list for the override list if override list is none, because we might just want to pass a list of packages and be done with it. Yeah, so that's sort of moving that one line of none times length of package list from the other place to here. So that's neither here nor there. This is the stuff that we have been working with a little bit. So here is the bit where we could say if length of package list equals 0, then, oh shoot. Sublime.status message. Is this the one? It's deprecated. Use the one from the window instead. Well, poop. I guess we would just do a log for something like that anyway. Log, no files need to be freshened. There's also another potential issue with this in that this call is getting, this should be threaded. So let's go like this. Since it gathers package information when it runs. Because the Freshen override here takes a list of things. It confirms with you that you want to freshen them, and then it spins up a thread to do it, to make sure that it happens in the background and it doesn't hang the UI if there's a lot of things to freshen or whatever. Probably not necessary, but why borrow problems? And as a result, this should be doing the same thing. Everything else that does something with list of packages spits off a thread to do it, to gather the information on the packages in question. Basically, this call invokes a file scan. And actually, one of the things you can do with the package info, if I was to look at, package list. This holds a list of packages. We could actually create one of these with the names of the packages that we're interested in, and it would do the scan for all of them all at once and pull them out, which is how we should be doing this, and that should be happening in a thread. But this is sort of the hardcore building it up version. And it should create a package list object and not a bunch of singles. Yeah. Just to remind myself of that when the time comes. So when you run this command, it needs to know if it should be enabled by doing that, and then the actual run should be spawning off a thread that gathers this information. Maybe even the other freshen thread with some extra arguments. That's not something we're going to worry about here because we're very close to the stream time limit for this evening, and I don't really going to get into that much stuff probably. but that's something that definitely needs to happen to make this a good experience. And in that case, that's the bit where um, it should be actually saying there's actually nothing to be done here. So maybe we don't even do it in freshen overrides. Maybe we just assume freshen override, which here's override freshen thread, which takes the list of packages and the list of overrides. Um, this is the thing that actually does the work. And we can even see it here saying package list equals package list, which is the one that we were provided. Um, so there's probably a little bit more cleaning to do there. But if that's not in the core, then it is in here instead. And instead of calling that method, we might say if thus. Go ahead and do this. If yeah, it's package list in this one. If the length of the package list is equal to 0, or if not package list, probably another way to go. But I like that. No files need to be freshened, and then we would say status equals true and dialog equals true. I believe is the magic of that, and then we can return it. And in that case, when we do the thing here, remember last time we did this, it got mad at us because there was nothing to freshen. But now, if we do it, oh, maybe we should import the log call, huh? Dang. Probably looks something like that. I'm going to do this because I don't like... there's probably a nicer Flake8 way to do it, but I don't like those to go over the list, and I don't like them to wrap. I don't think. I should probably investigate that and some other stuff too. Like in this one, way up near the top. Yeah, see, I'm importing from lib packages a bunch of times. I don't like the way that looks otherwise. So how about that? No files need to be freshened, right? Which could even be smarter than it is right now. Whoops. Because it could, the message could be different. Message equals, there are no unchanged expired overrides to freshen. Okay, let's do that first. So this would be the message. And then we say if not only unchanged, then maybe we should have done that in a smarter way. Yeah, like so. Probably would have been the cleverer way to pull that off. No. Okay, so if we were to do it here like this and say freshen all, we get there are no unchanged expired overrides to freshen. Isn't the most great verbiage. And if we were to flip the state of this to false as the default, because that's easier than modifying the binding, when we come back to this and freshen everything, and now it's saying that there is something to do, and we could go ahead and say yes to that. It freshened 3 things, and now this is another test of the other part. We can't freshen everything in here. And that's something that has to be in there. We can't invoke the command right now, but if we had an override report that was open and something happened outside of this, like if you touched the file manually or freshened it yourself while Sublime was quit, then a lot of these commands go based on status information they get from the view themselves, which is, I think, the best we can do for that, because otherwise it would constantly have to be looking at the disk to see if things are changing out from under it, to the sense where when you create a new override, this report automatically refreshes. We don't have any API that lets us track package contents without doing it ourselves. And so I don't think it's a good idea to be using, our own iNotify instances just for that, when Sublime's already doing it for Git files and for checking its own things. Plus, that's not something I want to deal with in a plugin because it works different depending on the platform that you're on. If we try to run the command manually, which would be override audit freshen all, window.run, oh, come on, you. Override audit freshen all, like so. Oh, I suppose it decides it doesn't need to run in that case. Right. Well, I'm going to leave that in there anyway. What I said was still true. This is just not a good way to test it because the command disables itself if it doesn't think there's something in there. So what we would need to do, I guess we could test it out. We could touch. Let's see. From 10 years ago, HTML comment. Oh, sorry, AppleScript. AppleScript comments. Okay, so here's where this sort of comes in. If we do this, it thinks that is expired for right now. Then I run the touch command again over in this folder, but without the 10 years ago part. So now, as far as the disk is concerned, that's not actually expired. But as far as a report is concerned, it is, which could happen if we quit this and then restarted Sublime later. It's going to persist this information in the settings and everything. So we should be able to still trigger the command because it knows not to expire, it knows to enable itself because it thinks something is. But that code should actually be creating package info instances. Just realized why that thing did the way what I thought it should. It's creating the package info twice. I'll get back to that in a second. So this, I think, should say there's nothing to freshen. Yeah, I would have thought. Yeah, it still says no files need freshening. It's a little bit out of date there because the state of things there. So yeah. Now, one of the things, just to go back to that, because I just realized what was going on. Remember I said the code in the core in the override freshen thread itself, which is down here, has this clean package, which it gets called in this case. If you freshen a single override, then try to touch it, and if it worked and that package no longer has overrides, then clean the package, which means remove it from the settings so the command knows it's not supposed to execute in that context anymore. This method, as we saw when we looked over here, is caching the result. So I thought it would be a problem that the command up here gathers the list of expired overrides in order to figure out what it needs to actually do so that when it gets to this part, it can't actually do it, right? But that wasn't the case and it still cleaned it anyway. The reason for that is that this command is creating its own package info up here, and it has its own instance where it does the scan. And then when we spin off this thread, it does it again and creates a new instance, so it's not cached in there. One of the things that will change, not tonight, is that actually not necessarily change per se in this particular bit, but when you run this thread, you can give it a package list that's a list of names of packages or just packages itself. And if it already has the packages, it won't try to go out and fetch them again. So this should actually be putting these package info instances in and not the names of the actual things themselves. And so that's one of those commits we actually made way back when to stop it from doing the very thing that it's doing right now. When we do that, then this needs to be careful to clean that list out after it gathers it so that the other one can still do something with it, because we need to call this here and then again later, or we need to refactor a bunch of stuff. But um, so I guess what we could do just for here is, so let's go ahead and turn that off and say, what was it that we actually did here in this point after all of the other stuff was done? We modified this command so that instead of freshening absolutely everything every time, now it instead gets an argument whether or not it should do auto freshen of only unchanged files or all files. Then um, if it's not supposed to be only unchanged, then it just takes every single package and just says freshen the lot. Otherwise, it needs to scan over the list of packages, create a thing for each one, which is uh, gathering the information for the package, then getting the list of override packages, throwing away the unmodified ones, inverting the sense of that to come up with the list of things that are expired and unchanged, which is the opposite of what this does, and then adding items to this list so that we can call freshen override the way we did before, but with a more succinct targeted list for things. And I think we might call this flesh out. Whoops. Flesh out, freshen more. Oy. My lean back things don't quite work. And of course, I'll clean that up a little bit more. And there's also some changelog entries that need to happen in there as well, because this is going to be part of this release now. So we'll go ahead and commit that one in and bring that back. So we're doing pretty good on that regard, I think. And we'll see how this all shakes out. I need to do a little bit more testing and cleanup and refactoring of some stuff here. And we'll see how that all shakes out. Maybe next week's stream might actually be doing another release and continuing in on other stuff. We'll have to see how all of that stuff sort of shakes out for the time being. So let's go ahead and close that. And let's say that we go ahead and do a little bit of this action here. So I think we're gonna messy hair. Go ahead and call the stream there. We're pretty much at the 2 hour mark at this point. Yeah, it's not too bad. Probably a few minutes shy because I was doing some last minute setup, but I'm pretty pleased with how OBS didn't blow anything up on me. So that's nice. I'm just going to click this for a second. Yeah, that's not too shabby. See how well all of this works when all is said and done, because this is a newly compiled version. Ooh, something's getting mad under there. Still haven't dropped any frames. Cool. If you missed the beginning part, the intro to the stream, I did a bunch of work behind the scenes hand compiling a version of the latest version of OBS for Linux, which required compiling a bunch of libraries for interfacing with the X library that have been modified for the first time in like 4 or 5 years. And that is not the sort of package you just want to update on your system willy-nilly, because any application that's installed might want the older version. So there was a fair bit of jiggling around behind the scenes working on how to manual builds of OBS to get that working, which seems to have worked well. I do need to do a couple more things to tidy up what I did so it's more repeatable while I'm remembering it, but I'm pretty pleased with the results of all of that, and I'll be even more pleased if I watch the stream replay back and everything seems to have worked okay. I've been kind of watching it out of the corner of my eye, but we know how these things go. So, that's going to do it for this stream. Thanks so much for watching. We will be back next week. Same Sublime time, same Sublime channel, doing some live streams. Probably going to be something override audit related one way or the other. I want to get another release pushed out. So that might be tidying up what we did tonight to get it ready for a release. It might be starting with the release of that and going on to something else. I might do the release within the week, and maybe we'll just start more in on stuff from a ways back, creating patches and whatnot. We'll see what's going on for there. Remember, you can always subscribe if you'd like to be notified when I'm going live. You can always drop questions in the live chat if you're watching live, or in the comment section below any live stream if you have any questions about stuff, and we can cover that in the next live stream. And I also have a channel, my primary channel, linked down in the description of the video, where I do weekly Sublime text tutorials, interleaving regular tutorials with Plugin 101. I course on teaching you how to do the stuff that I'm doing here, but with more hands-on, actually explaining what's happening instead of just watching me make stupid bugs. And I believe Monday's video is going to be in that regard, working on actually doing a couple of things with plugin endpoints and tying in with last time, not last week's, but the previous Plugin 101 video on the plugin lifecycle, showing why those plugin loaded and unloaded methods might be important for you, and giving a concrete example of why it is they exist. But until all of that stuff, this is OdatNurd thanking you for watching and asking you, until the next stream or the next video, please have a sublime day.